culturally aligned to the organization's existence. And we're finding that actually those organizations that are very clear on their vision, their purpose, and their alignment of people's work and activities to achieving that actually allows them to be more effective and efficient. Well, welcome, Shankar, to this learning webinar that we're running. We've actually rebranded the webinar to be now called Leading Labs, the PM Logic Leading Labs webinar. So I hope to the audience this is a well-received webinar, and Shankar, you're our first guest on this webinar.
Oh, thank you.
Pleasure. And I'd also like to introduce Catherine, who has joined us. And Catherine's been with PM Logic for how many months now, Catherine?
1 month.
Nearly a month. Okay.
Okay.
So this is part of Catherine's initiative to focus particularly around leadership. And Catherine is also studying a master's as well. So this is a double benefit for our audiences as well. So maybe, Shankar, are you happy to introduce yourself to the audience, sort of where you teach, what you do, and your profession?
Right. I teach at the University of Technology, Sydney. I'm in the School of the Built Environment, and I teach in the Master of Project Management program. But leadership is a particular passion of mine because I teach about leadership in projects and also do research in mega project leadership. We published a few books and also published a book on balanced leadership. And I've been kind of in a leadership position in an organization before I came to academia. So I think I'm very interested in talking about leadership. And leadership is quite different. And I've done even a grant on non-profit organization leaderships a few years ago. So I've kind of worked on several areas of leadership. Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks, Shankar. And I think that experience of working in the corporate world, as well as more recently in academia, and I know that you do work with corporates as part of that academia, also will help with this topic today. So my background, so I've got 20 years program project delivery experience, and I like to think of project management as project leadership. So that's definitely where I come in and my interest in this topic. And Shankar actually invited me to teach alongside Shankar and two other professors, Kay and Daphne, on a leading projects in organizations, which was a block module at UTS. So that was a fantastic experience. And one of the literatures from that teaching was what can leadership as a practice contribute to organizational design? So the first question, Shankar, is, what is leadership as a practice? How would you define leadership as a practice?
Yeah, leadership is important for organizations, and although there's no evidence that leadership actually increases the profit margin of a company, but generally leaders have been good at directing organizations in certain ways. I think providing direction to organizations and then communicating the direction to the organization properly and throughout the organization, walking the talk, which is important. Mm-hmm. I think these are very important elements of leadership in practice. There are different theories of leadership. There is the hero theory, and if you take Charles Bronson, for example, Richard Branson, and you will think of him as a hero leader. But there are also quiet leaders who actually lead organizations without being in the front. And Google, for example, you never hear much about Larry Page, whereas Google is an organization which has done well as well. So it depends on, and there is authentic leadership, which is becoming more and more important now. So I think leadership styles are different, but in spite of that, leaders can contribute to organization, not only in terms of leading the organization, but also providing a structure, and that's where design comes in, providing the structure and the processes and practices that they admire. So that helps. For example, if you take 3M, which is considered a very innovative company, the way the leader used to, the CEO of the organization used to drive the innovation spirit was every day when he, in the elevator, when the employees walk in, he said, "What did you innovate today?" They didn't say, "What did you do today?" What did you innovate? So that was the message, that everybody must be innovative. So I think that kind of driving people towards a mission is one of the, I think, important way.
Yeah, I agree. And for me, just picking up on the language, so it's not necessarily what you do, it's what you say as well. And
Mm.
often I see in organizations leaders not practicing what they preach. So they'll say one thing and then do something completely different. And I suppose that links to that being that an authentic leader. And leading from behind, I often hear as well, where you're in a more supportive role,
Yeah.
making sure that you allow your team to go first. And there's obviously some great references to that as well. So from a student's perspective, how do you go about helping students to understand, what is leadership, particularly as a practice? What approach do you take to helping them on their journey to be an effective leader?
Well, there are several ways in which we can do that. One is, of course, we have teams uh, in our courses where we give them leadership roles, and often we told them that the leadership role should change around the team, not just one person as the leader. And sometimes we can see the transfer of leadership, and sometimes we can't. But I think one of the ways to do that will to empower them to take leadership roles in tasks and activities and processes that we do. Um, I have a friend who used to do that much more effectively. He used to even ask students to set up their own assignments in the course, and then use that as assignment. I don't think I'm brave enough to do that, but I think if you can ask students to, and especially if you, because we often survey students and we get feedback, and students do tell us things that we have to do better, and we tell them back what we did with your feedback, and that gives them the feeling that what they say matters. So that's important to understand. So I think important to make students understand that what what they say matters in the course, and also to think about leadership in personal ways as well, not just working in organization, but in their own achieving their own goals. How will they go about it, and how will they set plans? And this is one way of developing leadership skills in them.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Shankar. And I find often with students, they won't necessarily know their goals. They know that education is important, but they won't necessarily know, particularly which modules they're doing,
Yeah,
etc. Um, and I think certainly in my experience in the course or the block unit that we did on leading in projects or projects in organizations, the focus was on helping them understand what leadership
yeah,
is and that it was at all levels of the organization as
yeah.
well, not just the leader, the CEO. Actually, the students could be a leader in their own right for their own piece of work as well. So, do you think there's been an impact with leadership styles? And obviously, we're currently having this conversation, hopefully towards the end of the COVID significant lockdown that we've been having in Australia, with sort of December earmarked as where we get to whatever the new normal is. So, do you think as a result of this prolonged sort of virtual remote working, that leadership has changed and will continue to be different when we do sort of get to that
Yeah,
new?
it'll certainly change because, for example, in the university, we don't have a regular meeting with our staff and with our head of school. So when Kathy Killen was the head of school last year, she made sure that we have a monthly kind of a conversation, not specifically targeted towards any goals or something. We have school meetings when we talk about what we have to do and budgets and stuff like that. But she also had a catch-up meeting, and I think our dean has started doing that as well. She is having monthly meetings and uh, uh, showing us videos on what happened. So I think communicating better with your people, because when you're physically there, you can actually see each other and you can communicate with each other. And to do the communication virtually and be good at it, that is very important because of COVID. In fact, we communicated more with each other than when we when we were in the university now. So I think COVID has given us that opportunity that the communication is improved, and I think keeping in touch with the people, inquiring about their welfare, and those kind of things have made us realize that the we have to change the way we deal with our own people in our university.
Yeah, I totally agree. And certainly I saw that again on the course, and also my experiences in our clients, where we're seeing more of the whole person, not just the
Yeah.
person at work. For example, both of us are sat in our sort of home offices, or all of us, I should say, including Catherine, are at home. And, before we didn't really see that side of people.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's nicer to see more of the person, understand more of the person, not just the work person. There's more of the personal person as
Yeah.
well, so we can have more empathy with them and some of the challenges they may be facing, particularly those with younger children, etc., juggling the work-life balance. And so,
What happened in the university was at one stage when the lockdown became very severe and there was this red zone in the city, around the city, southwest part of the city, where people had more strict measures of lockdown. The university asked us to contact our staff who are there, who we supervise, because we supervise other staff, to ask them if they need any information from the university, if they need any help from the university. And I had one staff I supervised living there. But then I decided, oh, how about the people not living there? So I asked all my PhD students and my other staff who are not living in that area. And they were surprised. Suddenly, why are you asking this question? And thank you very much for that. So I found that a very important moment.
excellent. That's a great initiative as well, Shankar. And I think for me, I've seen where people are returning now to whatever the new normal is, 2 days a week, 3 days a week back in the office. They have appreciated the thoughts and sometimes gifts. I've seen organizations provide small gifts just to help their staff with, this challenging time that a lot of us have been through.
Yeah.
And so, as a leader, do you think that that will continue going forward? Yourself as a good example, do you think once we get to whatever the new normal is, that you'll continue to reach out to your
We'll
students?
have to we'll have to wait and see. I think we will change the way we work. I have a feeling that we will not all return to work as normal. We will work in this kind of a blended mode. Sometimes people will not be in the university, and sometimes people will be at the university. But the interesting thing is, we actually experiment in our school because of lack of space. We are experimenting with activity-based seating, which means that people are given desks when they come into the university. So we actually recently, I think since last year, because we moved from one building to the other, and then we had this new offices were shared offices and hot offices. We didn't have this before. All of us had our own rooms. And now that this has happened, we actually don't see many of our staff in the office because they turn up on some days. I turn up on more days because I promised to come for 3 days or something. But now that we have got used to that, it wouldn't matter because previously we'll say, why is the corridor looking empty? It looks like, the place where the bomb went off or something. But now we won't do that because we know that we can connect virtually. So I think that will happen as well. Yeah.
And the literature talks about self-organizing teams. So do you think that will have an impact as well, moving from the sort of the hierarchical sort of traditional leader and subservient employees to a more sort of organic structure where all teams are organizing to achieve an outcome?
Yeah, I think that should happen because we don't have all the knowledge to take all the decisions we would like to take. We have to depend on people who are experts within our team. but I think we still kind of delegate things to them. And rather than that, we should allow for them to come up and say, I have a new idea, and you need to empower that. I mean, if you feel that's a good idea to worthwhile to follow, then you should do that. So I suspect that the COVID will have this effect that because we cannot solve everything, we are relying on other people to solve things. This might lead to more self-organization.
Yeah.
But you know, organizations also have bureaucratic structures and policies, and sometimes these come in the way of self-organizing. But recently, I've noticed that in our university, previously we all used to have to contribute to the same area in research because that then brings us into prominence with the federal government that we are going to. But recently, there's a lot of relaxation and you work across silos. So I think that will also help us to self-organize. I think universities are realizing that collaboration is much better than silo mentality. So I think this might lead to more self-organization where we'll find our own partners around the university to work with. What I call a small world, the small world within which we work together. Yeah.
Excellent. That sounds good, Shankar. And I'm finding out in the corporate world that a lot of organizations are focusing more on their purpose, their reason for being. And that's certainly something that PM Logic, we've developed a 5-principle delivery framework. The first P being purpose. So why does that organization exist? And the second is people. So how do the people culturally align to the organization's existence? And we're finding that actually those organizations that are very clear on their vision, their purpose, and their alignment of people's work and activities to achieving that actually allows them to be more effective and efficient at self-organizing because they're all running in the same direction ultimately. So they have velocity, which is speed and direction, not just lots of speed in lots of different directions.
Because I kind of work on system thinking, one of the first things you ask in the system is, what is its purpose? Once you decide what the purpose is, then structures and processes and procedures will follow. If you don't know the purpose, then there's no point in structuring that system. Yeah.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, and if we sort of pick up on that, the viable systems model, often I see organizations not, they think too internal on their purpose.
Yeah.
So it's not inclusive of their employees
Yeah.
and potentially what they want. So yes, they want the company to succeed, which gives them job security, satisfaction in the work they're doing, but often they want other things as well, like education is a good example.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of organizations now investing in universities like UTS, providing opportunities for their employees to gain a master's or attend short courses, etc., which I didn't see as much 2 years ago because they see the value in, this is what our employees want now. They don't just want to come to work 9 to 5 or whatever the hours are. They want to do more. So are you seeing that as well? Is the university seeing more inquiries from corporations around how can the university support them and their learning needs?
Yeah, we have a lot of opportunities in the university to learn. There are compliance things we have to do, like safety and well-being, which we have to do. But the university also has a lot of opportunity. They have, for example, now recently, the university organized a program, for a 10-week program for early career researchers to be able to move into the next category. So that kind of structured programs are happening. We used to have leadership programs as well in the faculty. I think I probably have done most of them. So I think we do from time to time, we are given opportunities to participate in courses and learning. Not all the time we can do that because we don't, we are stuck for time. But I think I wouldn't say there is a concerted plan to um, bring people into. Our dean tried to do that with, say, all the leadership programs in the university. Everybody in the faculty should go together so that you be together during those leadership courses, which was a good idea. But I think what happens in most of the cases is we have performance review and a work plan. In work plans, we usually discuss what is the development effort needed for us. And that's where it kind of self-planning and then seek support from the university. That probably uh, more more prevalent in the university.
Yeah, excellent. And for me, what I'm seeing is a more alignment to action-based learning. So, and you know the 70-20-10, so 10% being the theory, 20% being classroom-based, applying that theory in some sort of scenario or simulation, as the case was with the leading projects and organizations that I did with you, and then 70% actually on the job. So I'm finding that organizations are wanting that just-in-time learning as well as the more traditional and those blended courses ultimately, so that their employees can reach out and get that instant learning hit or knowledge hit where they're missing things. So the last question I've got on my list is around VUCA. So for those of the audience that don't know what that is, that's volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And so as a result of VUCA, the pace of change is increasing.
Yeah.
It's not a step change, it's actually an exponential change. So when you look at the problems that we're facing today, like COVID and other things, they are highly complex, and it's not obvious what the solution is. It's far from it, in fact. When we look back in history or in time and see how we've solved those problems, it looks relatively simple. And so for me, that thinking needs to change around problem solving, and the viable systems model being one example of a good approach.
Yeah.
So when you think about leading or leadership as a practice, what other models or frameworks do you think leaders can leverage to be more effective as that practice of leadership?
Yeah, I think if you look at our research on balanced leadership, which we looked at what the project manager as a vertical leader and the team member as the horizontal leader, and then we looked at how when the vertical leader can pass over some tasks to the horizontal leader, and that horizontal leader can take it and complete it, but still the vertical leader govern the task and hand it back to him. But we also came across what is called, based on Albert Bandura's work on socio-cognitive theory, we think there is a socio-cognitive space between the leader and the follower. Okay? So the socio-cognitive space has, in terms of project, has three elements to it in our. The first thing is the empowerment. So once we identify somebody in the organization has leadership capabilities, so as a leader, you have to empower them to take on leadership tasks. You also have to make sure that they have the confidence to take on the task. You can give tasks to people, but they may not be confident. So how do you build confidence in people so that they will become leaders in the future? And sometimes when you hand over tasks to other people, they cannot do it by themselves. They have to find other people to do it as well. So they need to understand who are the other people in the organization they can work with. So they have to have what we call as mental model of where is the capability of the organization, where can I go to get help within the project, outside the project, or in the organization, within the department, outside the department. So I think this idea of socio-cognitive theory is very important for how to make the leaders and followers work together.
Yeah, excellent. Oh, fascinating, Shankar. Thank you.
Because in our research, we found that while vertical leadership contribute to success of a project, and horizontal leadership also contributes to success of a project, the social cognitive space enhances both together. So I think this is more like a mental space, not a physical space. It's more like a mental space in which followers and leaders can work with each other. And we call it somebody wrote a paper called the generative dance, where you have in an organization, you have a dance between the people. So how the tasks work across, and there is a working together, coordinated. That's very important.
And I can see that linking back to purpose as well, because that dance will only work if people are in step, let's say, with the music.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
need something. They need a reference. Is what I often speak about. And if you think about the solar system, you know, our reference is the sun, and we all revolve around it. So I find with these complex adaptive systems, you do need some sort of reference. So that way, and if you're using that T-shape organizational construct or a balanced matrix, having a reference, which is, well, this is the intent, this is the purpose, this is the vision, or even the target operating model, if it's known and specific, then people can work towards that, obviously.
Well, I suppose if you look at dance and music, there could be music and where there is a beat and you follow the beat. But there's also jazz where you can improvise. You still go out of but you come back.
Yes.
So I think that's more of the dance that the organizations have to follow. Allow people to express themselves, but within the bounds of whatever the values of the organizations are.
Yeah, I like that. And that obviously brings in innovation. And I think that's one of the things that successful leaders have. It's the ability to support innovation, to risk take, if I call a project management term, allow risks to be taken where it's unknown whether that particular initiative will be successful or not. Yet if they do it, they get the value in knowing whether it will work or not. So I think that innovation and risk taking is a key thing. So allowing the jazz instrument to go off, but making sure they come in at an appropriate time as well. And Catherine, any questions from yourself?
Yes, I would like to jump back to your students, Shankar. So since university focuses more on theory, what would you tell, or what do you tell your students, which skills they need to gain or improve on outside of university to become a confident leader?
Well, the way we probably do it is there are two ways of doing it. One is, of course, we bring the outside world into the class. Right? So, for example, we have a course now called System Thinking for Managers, and we're asking people to work on teams to understand how people with disability can work in construction projects. And for that, we bring somebody who is knowledgeable about this kind of issues to come and provide a case study. And we ask students to take role plays. We ask them to think about they're a government or a construction firm or a disability agency or people providing technology or training. So we try to get them to work outside their comfort zone and try to learn that will train them up, that when they go outside into the world, they will know what they learned in the class. It was not just theory. And that's one of the ways to do that. So I think getting students, and also most of our assessments, when we have our assessment, will usually go like this, that you have learned this in the class, and how will you apply it outside to your organization or any organization you can think of. So we always try to get them to apply what they learned in the class to practice rather than just repeating what the theory says. Okay? So I think these are the ways in which we encourage them to be more outward looking than just inward looking. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Shankar.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thanks, Shankar. Thanks for your time today. And it's been
thanks for asking the questions. Yeah.
Our pleasure. And yeah, we look forward to many more in the future. And obviously, Shankar is a professor at UTS. So for the audience, if you'd like what you heard, you want to find out more about how you can educate yourself in leadership elements or other, please feel free to reach out to Shankar at UTS. So thanks again to Shankar and to Catherine for hosting us.
Thank you.